All right, finally gonna do update number 22. First thing is Muggsy's actually been sitting here for almost 2 months. I think it's 7 weeks. Haven't done anything. I think I went in the cab once and turned the power on to mess with my comm setup a little bit. So let's even see if it starts. All right, well, that's pretty cool that it started after sitting for almost 2 months, so cool. One of the first things I'm going to work on is going to be an upgrade to the LMHC. Never really thought I was going to stumble upon this for a reasonable price, but came across one of the actual Warren hoists that would have come on this with the whole setup. Now, it wasn't a complete setup. This came off some other military vehicle. I think it had something to do with a spare tire lift. It mostly was working. I think there's something wrong with the reversing solenoid because it would only come out, it wouldn't go in. And then what had happened is when it was thrown off the truck or it was hit, this had cracked at the bottom, like it broke off on the mount. So I was able to find just this piece, reassemble it, and then I bent this back, and it's all good and it's working. Then in this little control box piece that it mounted to, all my stuff that I'd made in my ammo can for my previous video should fit in here. Then it has a hookup, which it didn't come with, but it's the same controller that would be used on like a Humvee winch, which I had laying around. And I tested it all, just hooking it up with wires and stuff, and it does work. So the first step is I'm just gonna replace this. I'm gonna replace it with the cable and hook that I have up there already because that one is cut to the proper length needed. This one's probably longer, so I want to get the most lifting power out of it so it's not straining as much. And then my second step is going to be figuring out how I want to mount this and if I want to mount it to the actual crane itself. He's so happy. All right, got the new hoist motor on there. It was much more annoying and time consuming than expected, but it's done, it's on there secure. Switched over the line from the other one because of the length, like I said, but also the other one was really ratty on there, a lot of kinks and frays. This one may end up being slightly too short, but we'll see. You'll see what I did when I had it kind of like rigged up to the bed and tightened it really quick, that was to like tighten the knot because it doesn't use like a little lockdown screw. So it's way later in the afternoon. I spent well over 4 hours trying to figure out the control box. And I did. And I already figured out where I was going to mount it. I have it mounted with just 1 3/4 bolt right now. And it was one of the bolts existing on there. And it took me forever to figure out how to get the control box to work. I was kind of recording and talking through and ended up being kind of like such a mess and so much going on, I didn't really bother. Everybody's application's a little bit different too. This is the reversing contactor that I had because I thought the one that was in this from the military, the Warren one, was bad. Turns out it wasn't. What it was is, to make a very long story short, is instead of a breaker, that setup had some sort of like overload protector. And because of that, it made it way more complex. Basically what it would do is it would cut off winching up, but not cut off winching down. So this is probably good, except for the fact that somebody previously kind of like stripped that out, but it does work. This is the wireless piece. I did not install that for my other one, nor the breaker. I'm gonna have to figure that out. later. I'll probably put it on a slave cable like the military did. But I figured it out. The only thing I'm unsure of is actually if the in button is going to match up. That's simply going to be changing around 2 of the contacts. Also, I normally would have trimmed the wire down, but I'm not 100% on this is going to be left here. So I'm not going to cut the wire because once you cut it, you can't add it back in. So I just neatened it up to put it on here. It should all bolt up really nice. Put a new cap on here. And you should be able to access it from the ground, which is going to be cool. It'll make setup a lot faster. So let's see how that goes. All right, all set up. So first thing, plug it in, hopefully no sparks. Don't hear any sizzling or anything. Now the second thing will be, hopefully the controls match up. Go figure, the first time even pulling this darn thing out, it's getting all tangled up. So hopefully out is out and in is in. Yes. Well, there it is. Cool. Still got to neaten the cable up a little bit, but I got an idea for that. So I'll come back and show you once I get it finalized. All right, it's all stowed away and neatened up. It's actually the next day because as I was folding the crane up, I actually jacked up the Anderson connector up there. I had to order one in and redo it, but wasn't the end of the world. But it's all nice and neat and tucked away. Works well. And the only thing I got to figure out, but I already got one on the way, is making a dedicated small slave cable for it that has a breaker built into it. So that way it's protected for shorts and stuff like that. But that's pretty simple to do. So I'm not terribly concerned. Another thing down, move to the next. All right, poor lighting here. I had to do some work off camera. It ended up going late into the night and I needed to use my truck the next day for a delivery. It's pretty common, the 2 outside batteries went completely bad. And I did try putting them on my battery rehabilitator and charger and they basically just started bubbling over. They didn't accept a charge after a couple days of trying to rehab them. I sort of just, in haste, switched it to a 2 battery system. And then what I had to do with the cable was just insulate this one negative side here because I didn't have a proper connector to just have a end on the second battery here. And then I used 2 wooden blocks to shim this up so it was in there. And it worked good for the whole day of driving that I used the truck for. My plan today is to just neaten it up. I do plan, when I actually get completely new batteries and stuff like that, to put a battery balancer and everything in here. But for today, I'm just gonna kind of neaten this up. Everything is out. Vacuumed it out. I'm not gonna go crazy cleaning it. It's just the battery box and it's dusty and stuff. Even though I just said I wasn't going to, I think I am gonna set it up and get it ready. Here's my parts. I have the Cooper Busman battery balancer. I've had this sitting around for quite a while and it is the 100 amp model. And I have a battery cutoff switch and it's the military one. This particular one I got was intended for a Bradley fighting vehicle. So it had a bunch of other brackets and stuff with it. I think it's the same one that are in the newer generation FMTV. It has both for a 12 and 24 volt. And this is one of the brackets I kept so I can use this just as a template. And then I got some double odd wire and cable ends and stuff like that. And then I got some rivet nuts and hardware for mounting this to the battery box. My plan is the open area right here is where I'm going to mount the battery isolator. And then somewhere kind of in this area is where I'm going to mount the battery isolator. And then the 2 battery setup's going to be up front. So if you got to look at them and do your maintenance and stuff on them, it will be easier to get at them. The reason why I'm gonna put the battery isolator in the back is the leads for the 24 volt are pretty short and I don't wanna mess with them. So if I mount it back there, they'll be able to mount and the 24 volt will be facing that way if the light is facing that way. And if the battery cover is off and you come from over here, you'll still be able to see that light with the batteries on if it's doing what it's doing, even with the battery installed right here. All right, that went way longer than expected. Plan came together, 2 batteries set up, had to make a bunch of new cables. Balancer is back there. The switch is off to the side. I'm gonna put power to it the first time, see what happens. The batteries are disconnected. I'm gonna connect the batteries the first time, see what happens. Okay. What I did do to test it before is like where the 2 positive leads come in, and then to the negative, it was correct. I'll see if I got power to the truck, and then I will try to start it if I got power. I got power. All right, well, it works. I'm gonna let it idle for a little bit. You can see that it is doing just a slight bit of battery equalizing. Cool. All right, one thing I wanna do with the truck off, if I turn the lights on, and that should pull a 12 volt load. You should see, yep, just like I thought. It's a solid LED because it's equalizing. And then what should probably happen, Kat, if you want to take the, as I shut it off, it should slowly equalize the battery. Okay, so what it did is it equalized the battery and the load really quick. So, cool. It's doing what it's supposed to. Now, the way that I chose to wire it, it's not exactly as it says it should be per the wire diagram. It's the way I chose to do it, and I think it's gonna be fine, especially with the way that I stacked them on there. It got really late, so I'm not gonna be able to finish. I'm probably just gonna leave my truck parked here and pick up tomorrow. It came out pretty good. One thing I did not like is these battery terminals that I got off Amazon that they said were mil spec. They're actually pretty good terminals, but they're not mil spec ones. This is a true mil spec one. And you can see it has like big 9/16 bolts that go through. This is a reused stud from the old battery cables so that it would hang off the side. These are nice because they're not like an alloy, they're actually all lead, but it's smaller metric hardware. I might end up switching these out down the road so that these are all a standard thing. I don't want to have like 3 wrenches if you come in here to change or mess with the batteries. I installed these when I first got the truck in September 2020. These are still very healthy. I should pulse charge them overnight since I'm gonna let the truck sit here, which is what I will probably do. I think the date on them said like 2019 because they sat in the warehouse. So 5-year-old batteries and they're still cranking strong. I'll pick back up tomorrow. Yeah. Overnight, I charged the battery on the left and then pulse charged it. They call it repair on the No Code Genius Pro 25 there. And then in the morning, I swapped it over, charged it up, and then pulse charged the right battery while I was away at work. I'm home now, so I'm gonna work on putting the battery clamp. And then the one thing that's gonna take me a little bit of time I didn't talk about is there is supposed to be a cover that goes over all the terminals right here. These are M3 screws with how many wires I have connected there. This doesn't want to fit on there. I'm sure if I really like banged it on there, I'd get it in place, but with where it is, trying to line the screws. So what I want to do is source, these are 10 millimeters long, I believe. Maybe get some like 30 millimeter long ones and then some 20 millimeter spacers to just kind of rise it up. And that should be enough, because I'd like this to be on there. That way if a critter or something crawls in there, it's not to say it wouldn't be able to get underneath and arc it out, but you never know. But that probably will not get done before wrap this up. All right, all I did was cut it. And you can see it makes up for the other batteries missing. And it still clamps the same way. Cover's back on. And that's it. Till I need to replace the batteries. All right, what I want to work on now, for those of you that have watched my video series for a little bit, you're probably wondering, he's gonna mess with this again, but over here on this rack behind the passenger seat for my communication setup, I finally got a proper radio to put in here. The VAA that was mounted in here was proper, but it has a slight problem. So I need to take that out along with this tray so I could troubleshoot it on the bench, and I'm gonna mount a new radio that I got. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna test it. All right, install is pretty much finished. I need to fill the radio with my radio plan. All right, and the plan is loading up. Get the radio to start booting up. Plug this into the USB adapter.
Battery level 11.6 volts, net 1.
You can hear the noise from both the radio and the computer. Okay, the files are sent. Are you sure you want to load new configuration? Yes. Fill in progress.
Build updated.
Kilo, this is Muggsy. Radio check, over.
Muggsy, this is Kilo. I hear you loud and clear. Over.
Roger that. I hear you loud and clear as well. Muggsy out.
All right, that's a wrap for update number 22. These are becoming a little bit less frequent, but there's still a whole bunch more good stuff to come. Keep an eye out.